demo day, blijven stijlen voor die pay. En ik schreef een BDV, maar dat doe ik niks meer mee. Demo day, blijven stijlen voor die pay. En ik schreef een BDV, maar dat doe ik niks meer mee.
Hi, and welcome to How to Demo the podcast. I'm Laura Peters, and I'm currently doing my final master project at the Faculty of Industrial Design at the Eindhoven University of Technology. With this podcast, I'm gathering and sharing insights on the why, how, and what of the demo day together with staff, students, and alumni of industrial design. If you've got no clue what I'm talking about, I invite you to go check out the very first episode of this podcast series, as it explains everything about my graduation project and gives you a good insight into why the rest of the content of this podcast is the way it is. In today's episode, I'm talking to Miguel Bruns. As our former Director of Education, he clearly has a vision on everything related to our educational model. And this made our conversation slightly different to the ones that I've had before. Because basically it's just an episode filled with inspirational quotes and carefully considered statements from someone who has been thinking about this for a very long time. But besides all of this super informative stuff, which I thought was epic and sort of blew me away throughout the recording, he also really shares his passion for food, cooking, and Michelin star experience, and how that actually also relates to design, which I thought was super epic. So, I will just let him do the talking. So sit back and get ready to be inspired and have fun listening to my conversation with Miguel. Welcome everyone to another episode of the How to Demo podcast. Today I am joined by someone described by our students as a perfectionist in both research and visuals, the one and only Miguel Bruns. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Would you maybe like to start by introducing yourself a bit to our audience?
Well, so my name is Miguel Bruns. I've been working at the department since 2009. Initially as coach and later on as an assistant professor, which I'm currently still. I've also worked as director of the bachelor's program, and I'm currently also involved as program director for Innovation Space, where we try to bring some of the ideas that we have here at Industrial Design in terms of entrepreneurial, hands-on and challenge-based education to the rest of the university. So working a lot on education innovation, but also very interested in concepts such as shape-changing interfaces, which are essentially a transition from static form towards dynamic form and dynamic interaction. So building on a strong tradition in aesthetics, in product design, I like to see how this evolves into application, new materials and new dynamic qualities. So hence my passion also for aesthetic qualities of products and seeing how this can translate. So that's my educational role and research and managerial role in a sense, summarized.
Okay, and how did you get there?
How did I get there?
Yeah.
Well, I studied industrial design engineering in Delft. So I got intrigued by a concept called tangible interaction, which was starting by the time I started to do my my final master's project. There somehow I think through the project that I did and reflecting on the most interesting courses that I had, I started to gain this interest for interaction design. But I think the quality, the essence of quality is also something that has to be in you. Mm-hmm. So I'm a cooking fanatic, and I really like to prepare dinners, but also to experience dinners. And I like to go to high-end restaurants to see how chefs cook and prepare their food. And I think there you learn a lot about what quality actually is. Yeah, and you need to understand the details, and everything needs to be perfect in order to get these 3 Michelin stars. Well, I've never eaten in a 3 Michelin star restaurant. I've eaten in 2 Michelin star restaurants, and it's perfection to the limit. And if you want to be the best at your job, you need to do things the right way. And that's how I understood that you need to become a perfectionist if we want to be the best design program in the world. Everything has to be perfect.
That's a nice bridge also to your role in our education. How did you go from the tangible interaction to taking on this role in innovating education?
Well, I think the reason why I like this innovation in education is because I realized that in order to change things and to make things happen, you can't do these things on your own. So you need to engage people, you need to stimulate people, you need to inspire people to think along and to share your vision and share your ideas. So by becoming a director of education, by getting involved in innovation space, you get the opportunity to talk and stimulate and inspire a very large group of people. And so I think education is basically also a way to bring across your ideas and your visions. And I think that I very much share the vision that was here in Eindhoven when I came. And I can give it my own twist, but I think that we as a department have a very interesting and intriguing vision, and I can take my part in that, and through the students that come in and the companies that we involve, but also in sharing it with the rest of the university. I think we, that helps in getting some thoughts about how we think about industrial design.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that relates very nicely to what I'm doing now for the demo day, because I really see that as an opportunity to, or a moment where we can clearly communicate this vision about how we see industrial design.
Yeah.
So could you maybe share your thoughts on the role of the demo day within our educational model?
Yeah, so when I started here, the demo day was called the exhibition, I think. I'm not sure what the name again was. Final exhibition. And it was very much targeted at demonstrating your learning. And of course, this is still a very important part of the demo day. It's about showing the products of what you have learned and discussing that with the teachers and getting also different perspectives, because in my view, it's not about education. It's not about telling students what to do. It's about learning, and students have to learn as much as possible, both from their successes as well as from their failures. And the demo day is an excellent opportunity to show your work and get a huge amount of students, staff members, companies that come over, professors from other departments, who can give feedback on the work that you do. And I think people are too little aware of that opportunity that they get, because we really invite everybody to come over to see and share their thoughts. Everybody thinks it's the end of the semester, here's where it stops. And now I just need to do my best and get the best grade. But it's not about getting the best grade. It's about learning. It's a part of your learning process. And doing things wrong is absolutely not a problem, as long as you improve it for the next time, and as long as you learn from it. And so you could see that students considered it too much as an end goal as such, while it should be a transition moment.
Yeah,
and then
a part of your design process anyway.
But then again, it's also about how you communicate. So what I experienced when I was director of education is that, there's 200 booths perhaps, or even more. I don't know how many there are. So it's impossible in 1 or even 2 days to see everything that's going on. And there's many interesting things. There's many things that perhaps are not as interesting for me, but maybe more interesting for others. So I really had at some point to hide myself and then try to see what was going on. And then the attention was caught by the beautiful and the well-designed booths. So obviously I have my own interests, my own passions, so I always went for the ones that triggered my attention, and that students that had taken care in developing an exhibit that reflected what they had learned. So care is a very important aspect in this sense. So if a student doesn't care about what they learn, how they learn, you see that reflected in how they present themselves, because they don't care about getting good feedback or not. So this sense of quality is about the care. So how much do you care about your work, and how well do you want to show your work? And even if it's the work is if you can learn and improve it, and getting critique on it, that's a good thing, because there you will learn from. So, but make sure that you've taken care of your work, otherwise everybody will just ignore it.
Can I maybe ask a question?
Yeah.
So you said that when you came to the faculty, the demo day was really focused on showcasing what you learned throughout the semester, but you also said a bit further on that you're now more showcasing the products of what you learned. Has there really been a change there?
Yeah, so what I was saying is that it was mainly focused on showing what you have learned to your assessor.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to understand that learning is more than just showing the end product and doing the exam and then ticking the box and saying, okay, this is what I've done.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that students considered it too little as being an important part of who they are themselves. And that's why I think, so one of the reasons why we changed to the demo days was that, students, first of all, when they graduated from industrial design, they always complained, saying like, yeah, but if I apply for a job, they are always looking for a designer from Delft. Okay, that's because they don't know what we do in industrial design.
Mm-hmm.
Then we organize a demo day, and we also invite the industry to come and have a look and see what we do, so they understand what we do. And I say, yeah, but our quality is not as good as the Design Academy. So when you go to the Design Academy, to the end show, it's beautiful, everybody gets the attention. Well, then improve the quality of your work. Make sure that you have the same quality of deliverables, or the same story, or depending on what the context is that you're presenting, because sometimes there's also another layer in your story which may not be reflected in the quality of your deliverables. Yeah. But make sure that that is evident in the way that you present your work. Yeah. And I think that students do not consider this aspect very well when they present their work. It's about learning, it's about communicating who you are as a designer, your identity, and making sure that you get to talk to the people that are going to help you further, either by giving you feedback and improving your learning, or by hiring you or providing you with the means to further or develop your company or your research ambitions.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you also mentioned the Design Academy example, because a lot of our students are always like, when last semester I started to ask like, okay, what do you want different in the demo day? Everyone's like, or a lot of people, yeah, I want it to be like the Design Academy. While I think like, I understand that you want this professional look, but that is also up to you guys. But they're also doing something completely different than what we are doing. Yeah. What's your view on that in relation to how we present our work?
It depends on what you want to show. So you need to be clear on what it is that you show, and making sure that that thing that you show is very well communicated. And in some cases, it can be a beautiful prototype if you are taking the showroom approach in constructive design research, and you want to develop a prototype, set the standards of RCA, and then put it out there, and then have people just respond to it. Then, of course, it needs to have the quality of Design Academy or beyond Design Academy. If it is the product of a very well performed usability study, it's going to be a different approach. It's going to be a different product that you're presenting. It's going to be different results, and they're all as valid, because you can graduate here with strong focus on improving the interaction with within a car simulator or something, and try to show a nice video of the research results that you have, or you can show a beautiful speculative prototype and see how the people respond to it. That's all dependent on your ambition as a designer, your vision, the place that you want to, or the aims that you want to achieve after you graduate. So, yeah, for those that want to be speculative designers, or those that want to be provocative, of course, the quality needs to be even better than Design Academy. But if you focus more on trying to convince a company, make sure that you have a product that stands out for them specifically.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. You mentioned that you were also interested in discussing the different tracks related to presenting your work, and this is also that at least our graduates have a lot of questions about.
Yeah.
What would you like to share about that?
Well, I think the demo day is part of learning. It's part of the professional skills of a designer. As a designer, you should be able to talk and present your work in the most effective way. And that is very much dependent on your ambition. So if you choose for a specific track, these tracks have been installed with reason, because what we observed was that about 15 to 20% of our students started to do a PhD after their work. So then obviously the demo day is about presenting your research results and your quality as a researcher. And it's about demonstrating this work, and perhaps you're also trying to address a different audience than when you choose for design leadership and entrepreneurship, which really focuses on either pushing you to create a startup or a consultancy, or perhaps moving into more a role on as an entrepreneur somehow. So there you need to get some interest from people that are perhaps willing to finance your ideas, or perhaps get some support to do some follow-up courses, or perhaps even attract the attention from students from other disciplines that may help you in conducting, or in the mechanical engineering or the innovation management part, which is not the specialization of industrial design students. So there you can use the demo day also to invite others in order to discuss or show the work that you have. And in the case of research, design and development, it's about showing to the industrial partners that we have as a department, or perhaps the guests that you bring in, what you can do in order to convince them to hire you at some point. So it's using these elements as part of the story, as part of the presentation, and as part of your communication to the stakeholders you would like to involve. And that's also one of the reasons why it was not the essential reason, but I think what was important was that we wanted to show to the outside world what industrial design was. Well, if we take it as a assessment tool, which it used to be, then it's only focused on our internal evaluation.
Yeah.
And I think it's still an assessment tool, but I would prefer to call it a formative assessment tool, because it's about you trying to learn from the experience, from saying, okay, I didn't get the attention from the people that I wanted to get the attention from, which means that I'll probably need to improve and tell my story in a different way next time, or practice throughout the demo day and improving your story, because there's a lot of people that attend your booth, and you can try and develop your pitch. While what I notice is, particularly with first, second year students, is that they practice their pitch.
That's it.
And that's it. So the whole demo day, they're going to tell you the same pitch. So every time it's like, okay, but pitch is only 30 seconds and you've been selling for 5 minutes. It's like, okay. But yeah, so use it also as a means to improve your story, to tell your story, to get feedback on how to sell your product, how to sell your research results, how to sell your vision.
And it's funny that you mentioned actually first and second year bachelor students. Of course, the first years don't have a demo day.
They do have a small.
Yeah, they do have a demo day, but it's different than it used to be, because they haven't chosen a certain track yet, and they're still developing all over the place, basically.
Yes.
How should their approach Now, should the approach of the graduates to the demo day be different because they are more focused, do you think?
Of course, yeah. I think, it's for first and second year bachelor students. It's a way of learning to present the results. And there you also start to engage in it. But it's another thing is, and that also I noticed too little, because it's like, okay, I had my demo day in the morning, so now I'm going to go home and forget about the rest. But how about as first year students go and have a look at what the master students are doing, and vice versa, as master students go and give feedback to the bachelor students, because they can learn a lot more from the master students. And I have the impression that most of the students consider the demo day, okay, it's part of the assessment, I do it, I'm going to stand there. If I'm not standing there, I'm going to have a look at my friends, and that's about it. But it's also a community that you want to create. You really want to share practices, and yeah, perhaps if you're setting up your company and you go and watch these second year students that have some very cool ideas, and perhaps you can offer them an internship, which will help you start up your company next year. I don't know. So there's all these ideas. So it's about looking a bit further ahead instead of just focusing on the demo day is now, it's my assessment, and I just want to get a good grade. But we're a community as industrial design, so we need to share these practices as well.
Do you think that there's anything that we might do in how we construct the demo day to stimulate that? Because that's exactly why I'm doing this podcast, because I think that we have most of the stuff here.
Everything is here, yeah. It's just a matter of telling the story. So perhaps the podcast will help in taking these ideas out. Yeah, I think so. It's quite of an issue, and I understand that people have so many things to deal with and so many things to understand, and there's so many changes and there's so many ideas. But
and also, especially as a graduate, you also don't want to miss people at your stand.
No.
Or at least that's what I experienced, because I did go to look around a bit, but mostly because I had to gather research results. But other than that, I was like, yeah, I really have to be at my stand now, because I also want to get my feedback.
Yeah, but why not put a small message on your stand? I'm going to be here from 2 to 4 and from 10 to 12, I don't know. So just, or if there's a very important guest that you don't want to miss, ask give your phone number to the person standing next to you and ask them to send you WhatsApp as soon as this person is in the neighborhood, right? So or just go and find this person and take them to your booth while you're walking there.
That's probably best.
So you're creative enough to think of different opportunities, and I'm not saying so. I don't think that you should stand at your booth for the full 8 hours or 6 hours or the long it takes, but make sure to stand there at least for 3 hours and get as much feedback as you want. But also find some time and agree with people that are around you. So now I'm going to take a walk for half an hour, then I'll come back and then you can go and take a walk for half an hour. So you share these ideas, and if somebody important comes, I'll send you text to make sure that you're back. So it's not about standing there at your booth, but also about seeing and getting inspired by others, because there may also be things that you learn from talking and seeing how others present their work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, when you say it like this, like, yeah, that's obvious. But it's also...
It is very obvious.
Yeah, it's also, I think, a matter of just hearing someone say it.
Yep.
One's like, yeah, it's definitely okay if you're just not there all the time.
Just put a note in there.
Yeah.
I'll be back in half an hour. Or, put a time in there, because otherwise half an hour could be a very long time.
Yeah. Talking about demo day presentations, have there been maybe in the past demo days presentations that you were really impressed by, or that you really vividly remember?
In how far back do I need to go in the
past?
past?
If there's one from 6 years ago, so it's just still like, oh, I remember it. It probably did something right. So.
I remember projects, obviously, so from the past, and what I always like is and this, of course, I try to stimulate with my students. So you create small communities of people that work together, and so it's about telling the bigger picture, And so a couple of years ago, I had 3 students that were working on this same topic but different projects, and trying to put these students together in order to tell a full story of the whole project that you're doing. So obviously this happens in the squads, but also on a master's level, students are working on research with a particular professor, and they share their thoughts, they share their ideas. So make sure that this is also evident in the way that you present and communicate your works. I always like processes to see things that are going on, and I'm saying a lot about my own students because I try to push that. So for example, last year David designed all these meta materials and made sure.
Shoes.
Yeah,
his presentation was so nice. I really loved it.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
So how they present it, making sure that they care for the details. I think also Jessica, Jos, and Fabienne did an excellent job at presenting their work. I think one that I also liked very much is what was her name again? So she did some work with bacteria, and then the second year students Yuri and what's her name again? Vic. So just having a real life working demo on their stand, and showing the design that they made, the whole process of how they built up all the material samples. I think, particularly in let's call it the is it crafting everyday soft things squad. They do a very good job at showing a lot of the process results of the work, and that's usually the squad that I must go to for myself, besides obviously the master's work. But some squads are more difficult to present their work, and the students are just sitting on a table waiting for people to come, and they're not really engaged in telling the whole story or showing some laser cut boxes with some electronics inside, and
with color changing LEDs.
Color changing LEDs.
And a bit of duct tape.
As soon as duct tape comes into play, I tend to skip these presentations. I mean, I only go there if I know the student, but usually it's like, okay, walking by and forgetting about it. But yeah, also getting a feel for an experience outside. So trying to show a larger experience, and that is oftentimes very difficult, because if you are in the spaces, it's easy, but oftentimes students have very interesting exhibitions. For example, in the light lab, there you can build some very nice immersive experiences, but you really need to go there. So a student needs to find you and take you there. Or more impressive results. I think mainly the results that show this nice process and the developments and the thoughts of the designer, and I think these were nicely reflected in the work of Shigeru Yamada, for example, a couple of years ago, and Gordon Diemstra also had some interesting perspectives in there. It's a long time ago.
Could you maybe tell a bit about how they showed their process? Because I think that this is a question that, at least in last semester, a lot of students had for me. Like, I have gathered all of this information, and I know that it's all very relevant to how I got to this prototype or whatever.
I think so. What stands out from these two specific students, and then also David in that sense, is that they made a lot of prototypes throughout their process. Also, Wendy Dassen, for example. So they make a lot of prototypes as part of their design process, but not only do they don't just make prototypes out of duct tape but they also take a lot of care in presenting the details of their work in the process that they do. Also, Philomena Jasma, for a final bachelor project, had this very nicely presented. So they take a lot of care in each and every step of the process. So I have the impression that many students just go through the process, then at the end, the last week, they write the report, and they take some pictures in the studio, and that's about it. So they completely forget to make sure that also throughout the process, they go into the studio, take some nice pictures, or perhaps even keep the prototypes that they make and show the development of their design. And more students are just diving behind their computers and doing a lot of so-called research. And then suddenly they have this great idea, which they develop. They cut some MDF using the laser cutter, put it into a box, program some lines of code, and have a blinking LED, and then that's it. So
Why do you think that is? Because I recognize it. And I noticed that, especially now I'm doing my final master project, and I've really started to realize the power of actually making stuff that is visible for people.
And I'm not saying that everything needs to be crafted, because also very nice pictures. So, for example,
and of course, a lot of designs are also very digital.
Yeah, but another example of a former student is Dove, who did a social design project. But she made very nice pictures of the whole process and all the meetings that she had, and some very nice videos, and just showed a big overview of what she had done. So just create a full wall of pictures. That's also a very nice way to show what you've done. But yeah, it's.
You have to be really aware of your entire process to be able to deliver such a presentation.
And I think the program is not about the end product, but it's about the process. I mean, the core aspect of the rubric is the design process. So showing how you went through the design process is also a way to demonstrate what you've learned and how you've learned. And I feel that is sometimes missing, but everybody focuses on the end product as such, and sometimes obviously in exhibitions like Mind the Step, the core is oftentimes on the end product that is showed, but also there's room for showing some steps and transitions in the design process, and particularly here, I think.
Yeah, I think that's really nice, because I also really feel like especially the process is what really makes our approach to design different maybe from other industrial design faculties. I'm not aware of what all faculties are doing, but
know a little bit of what they're doing.
Yeah, a little bit. But it's interesting then that the results of my research previous semester showed that more than half of the graduates I interviewed said that their prototype was the most important thing for their demo day presentation. It's just interesting to hear from someone who's been working on education that, it's part of it. But
of course, it's a very important part.
And that the students then view it, that they're so focused on that. I'm interested in how that comes to.
Well, I think it's about the carefulness in the process. So they forget that it's not about just making, and that's the nice thing. If the process is very well taken care of, if the student pays a lot of attention to the details in the design process, the final result will be perfect. I mean, perfect not, but
it will be really nice.
Will be really nice because it's demonstrated throughout the process. And if a student is sloppy throughout the process, they're going to be sloppy at the end product as well. They're not going to be able to achieve the quality that is expected, or at least that I would expect. Because, developing this sense of quality is not something that you just do. You need to learn about it throughout the process, and making sure that all your deliverables, even though if they're at the very start of the process, are well taken care of. Then it's a matter of just taking the picture, putting it in the report, instead of looking at the picture and having to Photoshop away the can of Coke that was still on the table while you made a photograph of your MDF laser cut box. So yeah, taking care of these details will save a lot of time in the end, and that's what I try to tell students as well. But little listen.
Well, if they all listen to this, then
yeah, hopefully.
Well, you put a lot of emphasis on care, which I think is also very interesting. And you mentioned when introducing yourself also your big interest in
Cooking?
Cooking, yes. And the Michelin star experience. Yes. I've been to 1 or 2 Michelin starred restaurants, and it's always like, oh my God, why isn't the world like this?
Have a look at.
Maybe it's interesting to relate that a bit to.
So I always try to so I've watched a couple of movies as well, and there's a lot on Netflix right now, but Cooking in Progress, El Bulli, and I use that as an example as well to show the whole process of getting things right. And it's so close to the design process, understanding the machinery, the equipment with which you work, understanding the different ingredients or materials with which you work, getting to the right combination, trying things out, testing them, getting feedback from Ferran Adrià, who is a terrible guy in that sense, and just tells you, okay, this is really shitty. Mm-hmm. Of course it's shitty and sends you back because it needs to be perfect. And Perfect Storm by, what's his name, from The Chain, is also, he's really an asshole in that sense, right? Sergio Herman. I mean, not an asshole in the sense that, but in the way that he acts towards his, towards the sous chef and the people that I work, because he wants everything to be perfect. It's a 3 Michelin star restaurant, so everything needs to be excellently played out. And but they have to know everything, all the details about the taste, the equipment that they use. So the technology needs to be right, the experience needs to be right. They need to, in case of Michelin star restaurants, they have less care about the viability because people are just willing to pay the money. But if you're going to other types of restaurants, that obviously plays an important role. So there's a lot of similarities with the design process in that sense. And I don't think that students really understand and appreciate that, and it's the way that people experience your product, mm-hmm. or your service or the system that you've developed. They're paying for it, they're going to buy it, so they want to be.
It better be worth it.
It better be worth it, yeah.
To what extent that this will also differ across the level at which you are in the education? Do you think that our students should be able to cultivate this motivation in a sense themselves?
Mm-hmm. It's part of the professional skills, I think, and I think we need to cultivate it as a community. So it's not just about me as a teacher, and I think, well, with me, there's various other teachers, I think, that share this same sense for quality. There may be a few that do not, but that's always in larger organizations. But it should not rest on our shoulders as a group of, I don't know how many teachers, but our students, our master students, and also our final bachelor students need to help us cultivate this culture. So, I mean, they're going to be the next generation, so they better practice. And I very much I had an experience in the course Aesthetics of Interaction where I had 4 of the students that I had taken in the course on interactive materiality that I had really trained already in this care for detail. So Davida was one of the student assistants there, and they helped us in the course to transfer this attitude towards the bachelor students as well. And I think that we should, on a general level, have more of this. So we want to be the best department in the world, and it's not me, it's not us as faculty, but it's also in your benefit as students. Because if you come from the best program in the world, you're going to get the best jobs in the world. So making sure that your program is the best is not just a sense of the teachers that are involved, but it's also a sense about the students that are engaged. And we can help, obviously, and we'll do our best to make sure that it happens, but it doesn't happen if you come here to get your 6 and move out.
Yeah. Do you maybe have any ideas of how we, because of course I will also be working together with Tom on organizing the demo day again. Do you think that there are things that we could do in order to spark this a bit more, maybe?
I think making clear what the ambitions are. So as I said, I very much liked how you try to separate into groups. I found it very disappointing that there were only 2 students that designed for the future.
Yeah, just a bit of context for the people who missed my last semester. Last semester I sort of designed the graduate space, which I then divided into 3 categories in which students could place their work, which was We're Innovating Today, Designing Tomorrow, and Imagining the Future.
Yeah. So I think that was a very good attempt, and we should be critical and see how we can improve towards the future. And what I hear is that that people come in, they like it very much to come over, and I get a lot of requests from former students to inform them, like, when is the demo day, because I want to come over. So, and also from the different departments, people enjoy it, but they have no clue where to find things. And we need to communicate in a way that is clear to them, not that is clear to us. And there I'm pretty strong and keen on, because smart mobility is clear.
Yeah, very clear.
Very clear, dot, period. But if we say design about today or design about the future, design for tomorrow, for me, design for tomorrow doesn't make sense, because tomorrow, I expect it to be ready tomorrow, right? Yeah. So there I was critical, and I said, no, basically everybody that's designing for tomorrow is designing for, or for today is designing for tomorrow or in a few weeks. And but I think it's more important to also guide people, because people come with different hats on. If people come from industry, they want to see RDD students. So make sure that these students are standing there. If it's people from Daimler-Benz coming, or from Volvo coming, these people were there at the demo day, they want to see smart mobility projects. So make sure that it's clear that these are the smart mobility projects, both research and identify that these are research, design and development projects, that these are research projects, and that this is more an entrepreneurial project, and make that clear, and show also the relevance of our department. Because if you say it needs to look like Design Academy, no, it should not look like Design Academy. It should show that we are engineers, and that we also have a view on how future emerging technologies can be adapted in a more user-friendly and societally relevant and viable way. So demonstrate also this quality that we have in comparison to students from the Design Academy that are not as aware of the technological developments as our students are. Because that will also communicate very well to the rest of the departments, because we can be creative with emerging technologies, and we can translate them into beautiful and aesthetic and viable and desirable product systems and services. And that, I think, is somehow missing. Students are not really aware what the strength of the department is. We're engineers that are capable of translating emerging technologies into something that is viable, desirable, and hopefully also feasible. Well, that's the technology part. And communicate these things very clearly and carefully during the demo day, and use the demo day to learn for yourself. It's a formative assessment moment. It's not, we're not going to give you a grade, but it's about you. You want to learn, and we want to help you.
Yeah. Well, I think that's those are all very nice statements, or at least I really, really hope that people are going to listen to this.
Hopefully.
To round off our conversation, I have a last question for you. Could you maybe explain a project that you did that you are that you thought was really cool or that you're really proud of, and explain how you would present it at the demo day?
That I did, or
Yeah,
that
if
I made it myself,
a project that you have worked on,
or that was
working on
involved.
right now? No, really, one of your something that you did, and how you would present it at the demo day.
So not products that my students did, no?
No, it's really about you.
It's a long time ago since I did some cool stuff, and probably it would be because then probably it's going to be a food project.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just prepare a very nice dinner, and so this is more my hobby than it is, but almost every day I cook, and I try to make very nice picture of what I've eaten, and I've been inspired by others, so this is not but showing this process of what I've prepared and what I've eaten, and some reflections on this, because it also shows some very interesting thoughts. It more relates to so it was first of all, it was important for me to gain awareness of what I ate. So it was some sort of a self-reflection on understanding food, and then it became more of a artistic process where you try to make nice pictures, and but it's also interesting to reflect on these points, and I think from a research perspective, getting an overview of all these meals and annotate them and trying to understand, so this was inspired by this, and you see some links and some transitions. So I would create a full wall where all my meals would be presented in chronological order, and then I would do some sort of high-level reflection, marking specific ones and putting notes, and towards the end try to have some reflection on the self-awareness on food praise. But that's a wild idea that I have now, and it's not based on any project that I did, but it's just something that I'm learning on the go.
Yeah, it sounds really nice, and it actually gives me already the idea that maybe, because now we start setting up the demo day on the Wednesday, which is 2 days beforehand, but maybe if we would do it on Monday or start a week before, you would actually also have more time to sort of iterate your presentation and really, take this time for reflecting on the process.
And why isn't it demo day every day?
Yeah, also good point.
I mean, that's the whole essence. During the demo day, a lot of people come by, but there's a lot of days that people come by, and I think, in my opinion, all the space, and that was also the reason for hiring Tom. The studios should be our demo every day. So it's demo every day. I don't know.
Well, I think that this is a good place to finish the conversation.
Yep.
Thank you very much for all of your perspectives and your input.
You're welcome.
I will see you at the demo day.
Definitely will be there.
Thanks again to Miguel for joining me for this episode of How to Demo. So did our conversation get you thinking? Maybe you got really excited and have some epic ideas for improving the demo day, or maybe you've got some questions for me. In each of these cases, I would love to hear from you. You can contact me via Facebook or Instagram @LauraPeters, send an email to info@lauropeters.com, or just come say hi in the graduate space. How to Demo is a Studio Het is Ik production made possible by lots of awesome people at Industrial Design. A special shout out to the Kid Salim, Beeks and Lil Showcase for letting me use their song Demo Day as soundtrack for the podcast. And thank you, most of all, my epic listeners. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll meet you in the next episode of How to Demo.
heel veel plezier. Have fun, yo. Peace.